Hi, good morning. What we're going to do today is we're going to go and have a chat with a former client of mine, Mark Simpson. Now, Mark Simpson was an incredibly successful professional Ironman. He's gone on to be a very successful coach, entrepreneur with multiple businesses and a family man. What we're going to do today is have a chat with Mark and find out what he took from his sporting career into his business and his life and what that's done for him over the years. So let's go and have a chat with Mark and find out his secrets to being successful, both as an athlete and as a businessman. All right, well, thanks very much for making some time to have a chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a few years we've been working together, right? Can you remember when we first started working?
2009.
It was 2009.
It was about October, November 2009. Yeah. I think I took Holly for a swim class. That might have been early 2009, something like that. And then we started working together, it was around that sort of September, October, I think, 2009.
Wow.
That's nearly 14 years ago.
Nearly 14 years.
Yep.
And lots has happened in the last 14 years, hasn't it?
Lots has happened, yep.
Yeah. I wanted to have a bit of a chat with you because you're a unique enigma in the industry because you was a high-performing athlete.
Yep.
You've become a high-performing coach. You're a business entrepreneur. And you're obviously a family man. So you've got all of those things going on and you've managed to be incredibly successful in doing that, absolutely, yeah. And I want to mention in a minute a conversation you and I had just after you retired. But before we do that, can you remember why we started working together? What was it that drove you to look for someone like me?
It wasn't that I was necessarily looking. I taught your daughter, and then we just started a conversation, and you started to talk to me about the thing, what you do. And you'd written some books at the time. You gave me a couple of those. And then from there, I think it was every sort of school holidays you were bringing Holly back, and I was doing an intensive swimming program with her. Yeah. And then the conversation just started. I'd been competing for a long time at that point. I was probably, I think I was about 23 years old at that point, and I'd been successful as an athlete from a younger age, but I kind of hit a ceiling around that, probably from 19, 20 years old, once you sort of broke into that open age group. I wasn't an age grouper anymore, and I kind of got stuck. I couldn't quite, I was on the cusp of breaking into that top 20, that very, very elite group in our sport, and I just couldn't quite break through. So I think that's, from memory, probably what started the conversation, and then it evolved from there.
So obviously at that point there was a lot of things that it could have been.
Yep.
You know, we could look at physicality, we can look at technique, we can look at fitness, we can look at all of those kind of things.
I couldn't see at that point how more physical training was going to get me there. Like, you're already doing, in our sport, we're doing 4 disciplines, as you know: swim, board paddling, ski paddling, and running. So it's a very demanding physical program, and there's only so many hours in the day and so many sessions that you can do. I couldn't see how more physical training was going to get me there. I knew, there was 2 or 3 years there where I was kind of just missing out on that top group by 1 or 2 spots. So, I mean, now in hindsight, after many conversations with you, I know that's not a coincidence. That's, you're sort of, there's a reason why you kept landing in that spot. Turns out that was the case. So I just felt like I needed to try to lift another area of my game, I suppose. And it wasn't going to be in doing more physical training. Because like I said, you hit that ceiling, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually remember our first session, and we spent a lot of time at your parents' home. So, can you remember any of those earlier sessions that we did?
I do.
Yeah?
Yes.
What was it about it that stuck out?
Patterns, ball games, numbers, arranging them, sorting them, puzzles, I guess you could call them. That definitely sticks out in my mind as some of the first things that we did because, it kind of painted a picture of how this was operating. I definitely remember that being first sessions.
And when did you start to see a return on that investment?
Look, there was certainly an instant return, but small. It wasn't until a couple of years in where you really started to see, like for me, I remember certain races that I did where I was successful. I remember feeling, how to describe it, feeling really calm. I was fit, I was physically fit, felt really calm, and I was actually able to process and think through things slowly. It wasn't like things were sped up. Everything sort of slowed down, and I was able to make clear decisions. I remember that. That was early 2011. I remember that race clearly. It was a successful carnival, but I just remember feeling like, wow, okay, I can think this through. It was clear. Everything was kind of falling into place.
Yeah.
So that was close to 18 months at that point.
Yeah.
I guess the minute you realise you need to change your perspective and your way of looking at things, if you're bought in, you will make those. It just takes time for that to become ingrained. So it's certainly, it was probably 18 months before I started to, like, it was really falling into place.
I mean, your transition as an athlete was impressive, but I really want to talk about what you've done with that post your career. You had a very successful career, and I want to remind you about a conversation. I don't know if you remember this conversation. I was in my car, probably a good year and a half, 2 years after we finished working as a competitive athlete. You're smiling because you remember it, don't you?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
And I was driving in my car, and your number came up on my phone.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, hey, how are you? I haven't spoke to you for ages. And you said to me, have you got a minute? And I've gone, absolutely. And you said to me, I want to thank you. And I remember it so distinctly because it was such a humbling part of my professional career.
Absolutely.
And you sort of said to me, I want to thank you for, I didn't realise you was only coaching me as an Ironman, but what it's done for my life.
We did have those conversations when you were training me as an athlete, but it was a couple of years after where it really started to, the penny on that dropped big time. I was like, whoa, like I wouldn't have thought about whatever it might have been. I wouldn't have thought about it that way if it wasn't for that. Oh, I was successful with this because of that, you know, like it was a couple of years after that it fell into place, and then I've just taken the ball and just run with it now. I do it with everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go into everything with absolute confidence. I know I can figure it, you know, set a plan, a process, and follow it, and execute, because that's just the norm now. That's just what I do every day.
So you've become a very successful businessman?
I like to think so.
Yeah.
It depends on, yeah.
You've got a lot of balls in the air. You've got a lot of different, diverse companies that you head up.
We do.
From the swim school.
Yep.
And I want to talk to you in a minute a little bit about what you're doing with your athletes regarding the stuff that we've done over the years. You've got a surfcraft business, the one that's on your hat there.
Yep, this one.
Obviously, there's a lot of other things that are going on with you.
Yep.
Other swim schools, coaching, all of these things. What have you taken from your sporting career that's allowed you to have that many balls in the air? And you're not only successful in one of them, there's definitely a pattern of success across all of them.
Look, I think, as I said to you before, I was doing a sport that required you to be very good at 4 disciplines. It wasn't 1, 2, 3, it was 4. So you spend your whole career learning to balance that, and it's not easy. Then there's the other part to it, which was where you come in, which is putting processes and plans in place, working towards that objective. And I've just taken, I guess, those 2 things and just put it together and just taken that same attitude and that same process into everything I do. Pretty much. It sounds simple.
It does sound simple, doesn't it? And everyone says that to me all the time. It sounds simple.
Yeah.
One of the things people say to me often is, how much do you believe in this? And for me, obviously, it's what I do every day, every day.
Yep.
And for me, the biggest indicator to how much I believe in this is the fact that I've had 3 competitive children.
Yep.
And I've used mental performance training for all 3 of them.
Yep.
You've got a stepson, Bo, that we've worked with, and you've applied this to him and what he's doing.
Absolutely.
So what's it done for Bo?
Oh, where do I start? If I'm to talk about where he's at in terms of his athletic career now, his swimming career, I think there's so many things, but for his age at 14, he's highly competitive. He's right up there, sort of, you know, top few for his age, or he's winning state in the winter short course swimming. He's top 4, top 5 nationals. He's not one of the older ones in the age group, but he's getting those results off half the workload. So more of in terms of the physical workload. So more of the training is going into what's been put into here. and teaching him about a process and an objective and, you know, I guess bang for buck with the training and the things that you're doing. So if it's something that's not going to be of value or it's not going to help you progress, then why would you do it? So we see that there's plenty of time for him to increase and up his physical training, but he's where he is off half the physical workload because of that. It's changed his confidence, his belief, his resilience is a huge one. But yeah, if I'm the one that I'm probably most proud of, and the national coaches that I speak to, and I do speak to several of them, when I tell them the workload he's doing, they're like very impressed because their swimmers are doing double.
Yeah. So obviously we've talked a lot over the years about quality versus quantity.
Yep, absolutely.
And the burnout we see, particularly in young athletes
it's
of
high.
those
It's
age
very
group.
high.
Yeah, absolutely. So being able to understand what is it specifically that athlete needs. So in the years that we worked together and post those working together, we spent a lot of time talking. And we spent a lot of time where you ask questions and we unpack things and we look at efficiencies in how we do what we do. How's that affected how you coach?
It has impacted every decision I make. So I think one of the things that probably that I believe makes me a good coach is that I'll always go into a session or a week or a month with a plan. There's an objective. However, I'm not afraid to be flexible within that plan if I can see that something's not going to work because, I don't know, if I'm to give an example, the swimmers look tired in the water. Okay, that session's not going to be appropriate right now. We need to go to plan B. Because if I go to plan B, I'm going to get a better result come tomorrow when I need to do this. And it's just being able to see the things, I guess, that other coaches can't see. One of the things, I'm not afraid to admit or see that something wasn't right and change it if it's for the greater good of the athletes. I do it every day.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough over this last season to work with both Jay and Nathan, two of your current Ironmen.
Yep.
And we've just started to introduce what we did with you all those years ago with them. What have you seen in their performances? They're very different athletes.
Yep.
They're very different stages of their career.
They are.
And our approach has been very tailored for them because of that.
Absolutely. Oh, look, if I'm to talk about each individual, with Jay, certainly he's in his late 20s. He's balancing. We're talking about balancing. Full-time work, serious relationship. He's been an athlete for a long time. He's been a winning competitor since he was an 8-year-old kid. Watching him last season was great. He's sort of back up on his feet. Just could see that from the outside looking in, because I hadn't coached Jay before, we were just friends. I could see that he was struggling a little bit to kind of find that balance and I guess quality versus quantity. Why would you do this? What's your purpose? What's your reason? For him, it was probably, if I'm to simplify all of it, because the stuff that you're doing is obviously much deeper than that, but if I'm to simplify it, that's probably what I've seen with him. He's made huge progress in being able to balance all that out. With Nathan is a really, really hard worker, like loves to work hard, and has probably gone through with that mentality over a long period of time that it's all about the hard work. And it's been so good to see over the last 12 months that his eyes have been sort of opened up to the fact that, you know, again, back to what I said about myself before, there's only so much training you can do. You hit a ceiling. Like, you can't do 50 sessions a week, you know. For him, it's been learning to use this and piggyback that on top of the physical work, because he's not afraid of the hard work.
No. And you're right, we've definitely seen a lot of progress with both of them, and in different areas and different directions and different amounts.
Yep.
Which is, when we talk about tailoring our program for individual athletes, we always see that. People want a cookie cutter outcome.
Yep.
And you probably see that from an organisational perspective.
Absolutely, yeah,
Everyone
I do.
wants this same standardised approach, but it's, when you're talking about high performance, it's never...
It's never. With my swimmers, you know, I try very hard to have that communicate, because most of my swimmers are young, right? So they're sort of, in my elite squad, they're sort of 9, 10 through to 15, 16. Then I've got Nathan and that are 20, turning 21. So a lot of the communication is with the parents. So trying really hard to work with them and educate the parents on why you would or wouldn't do this session or that session, and trying to individualise it for each person rather than trying to throw a blanket over the whole lot and expect that you're going to get the same outcome for everyone. Like, we've been very successful, surf and pool, but definitely majority of it in the surf. Look where we are, we're on the beach, so it's the our clientele are surf life-saving kids. So I try really hard to individualise for them as much as I possibly can.
So what does the future look like? In the way that you coach, as I say, we spent a lot of time, particularly this season, working together again. We built a bit of a momentum in what you're doing. What does the future look like for you as a coach?
For me personally?
Yes.
I'm very fulfilled and proud of this patch. My objective is to continue doing what I've been doing and just evolving as a coach. So obviously doing my best to enhance our results. Our results in the surf have been arguably the best in the state. If you look at the pool space that we have, we've only got a 5-lane 25-metre pool. We're not a 10-lane 50-metre pool. Like, we've only got small space. So if you look at pound for pound, our results are probably second to none. So my objective would be to continue with that and just learning to evolve and just be better as a coach. There's always something to be learned. You never know it all. So, what can I learn in the next 15 years? So just be open and flexible and willing to evolve and change, really.
Look, I think you raise a really important thing. And one of my, soapbox moments throughout my career, I keep going back and trying to help and work with coaches.
Yep.
And I said at the start of this chat that you're a bit of an enigma, because as an athlete, you were hungry, you wanted to know, you were really keen to know the why.
Yep.
As a coach, I see the same thing in you.
Yep. If I don't know the why, I'm not really interested.
Very honest, I like that. Understanding that why and being inquisitive and being curious to what you're doing as a coach and how that best impacts your athletes. And as you said, being willing to learn and adjust.
Yep.
What do you see within the coaching fraternity that I often say to athletes, what would you have said to an earlier version of you?
Yep.
But for you, I want to say, what would you say to other coaches?
Look, I definitely feel like with swimming, I definitely feel that there are probably too many coaches out there that are after instant, fast success with their swimmers, and it's a long journey. I guess, it's hard because when they're coaching for an organisation that's after results and they want results in their junior swimmers, and by junior I mean 13, 14-year-olds through to sort of opens, but that talking about what we said before, which is that cookie cutter program, it doesn't work for everybody. And when you're hitting them pretty hard, pretty early, they've only got a window of opportunity. So the harder you push early on, the faster they're going to burn out. So I guess that would probably be my message, is to just have a think about, at times, do they really need to be doing that right now? Is that going to be best for their long term?
And obviously our focus has always been on the performance psychology of things.
Yep.
Do you think many many coaches are aware of what you know?
I don't think they're aware of what I know. Come on, you've been coaching me for 15 years, surely they don't. But I do believe that they're becoming more aware of it, and I do believe that it's becoming certainly more involved in all sports. Would you agree? Like, if you're around the clock back 15 years compared to now, no one really ever even spoke about it.
No.
It's definitely been spoken about more now than ever before, whether they understand it or not.
Yeah.
But at least it's certainly been it's a discussion.
Well, let's actually, you've just raised a point I wanted to kind of finish on, which was when we first started working together, you were probably one of the only Ironmen in Australia who was engaging a mental performance coach.
Yep.
And I certainly think that gave you a unique advantage that others didn't have.
Absolutely.
And if we do that full circle now, and coaches are beginning, I agree with you, I think coaches are, without a doubt, starting to use more and more skill set outside of the physical, outside of just the technical. Because I think we have, to a certain degree, hit the physical and technical ceiling. Particularly for young athletes. And so we're always searching for that edge.
That edge,
And I think few of them are starting to wake up to the fact that that's psychology, not physiology or technical development. So if you were the first one out the gate as an Ironman 15 years ago that was actively using this. Look, I remember one of the races here, funny enough, and we were visualising. And we were visualising on the beach. And you kept saying to me...
North Canal,
that's right, yeah. And you said to me, I don't actually want them to see what I'm doing. And you said, is it all right with you if I go and stand a bit closer to the water so they don't see what I'm doing? And I thought that was incredibly smart and incredibly brave because...
And getting away from people, because in our sport too, everyone's so crossing paths all the time on the shoreline. You know, you got the tent, you got your gear there, you're going to the water's edge, you're going to the start line, everyone's kind of crossing over. So you got to kind of position yourself in a spot where you can sort of get that me time, I guess. When if you put yourself right in the thick of everybody, you got someone that wants to come over and talk about whatever. And you're just constantly interrupted. So I think that was probably more, I didn't care if people knew what I was doing. I just wanted to be kind of separate so that I could get it done, you know?
We've covered a lot of ground here from you as an athlete, you as a businessman, and recognising that a lot of the strategies we built for you as a competitor, you use as a business. We've talked about you as a coach, and I think what you do as a coach is very cutting edge in comparison to a lot of coaches, particularly in an amateur coming into professional sport.
Yes, absolutely.
I think what you do is quite unique, and I think you've seen this always. What about as a parent?
As a parent?
Yeah. Because that's probably the biggest challenge, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's always more difficult dealing with your own children at times than it is dealing with someone else's. Look, my kids are pretty good. But where, like, my wife was, you know, she grew up in the surf club staff. She did swimming as well. So she understands it. So I think we both kind of come from that background. So that discipline, that structure, it makes it a lot easier to, I don't know, I guess, ingrain those values and that discipline into your kids when both parents are on board. But I think my kids are pretty good. They're wild, but yeah. Look, all of it, the stuff I've done with you, it definitely helps in that area of my life as well. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Having that conversation about no, we're not going to do more. And I say with Bo, I remember having a conversation with you of, we're not going to do more. But we're going to be smart about what we do. When everybody around him was trying to do more. How does that conversation work?
It's pretty good. She'll notice things before I notice it. So then we have that conversation. Is it worth going training tomorrow? No, sleep in, it's fine, rest. Or vice versa, I'll notice something and say, no, the plan's got to change. It's not this, it's now got to be this. And that's hard for families because they're so busy, they've got many kids, they've got so many activities on, they've got that clear structure in place of what they've got in the morning, the afternoon, school during the day, you know, every day of the week. It's not easy to tweak that, to individualise for everybody. But we make it work because it's what's best for our kids. So we do that. We'll make that decision. Sometimes we have to make hard decisions, but it is what it is. We'll do whatever's best for the kids and their longevity, not just with sport, but their ability to function and learn properly at school, just to be happy and you know, able to treat each other nicely. So yeah, in terms of us as a parenting team, like she's phenomenal, very, very good.
As I say, it's been an interesting journey, isn't it? We've learned a lot. I think I've learned a lot from you, and you've learned a lot in this process as we've gone along.
And we're only just beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. For the next 15 years.
Having you around, it's been like the last 12 months. Like I've seen you almost daily. So It's been obviously really good for the two athletes that we've been working really closely with, but it's been good for me personally for all these things that we just talked about, the parenting stuff, the coaching business, you name it, the whole lot.
All right.
Great.
Well, thanks very much. Look,
Thank you.
I really wanted to give people an understanding it's not just about what they do in their sport. You know, I think you are a prime example of what you learn as an athlete, you can apply throughout life.
Absolutely.
So.
And I mean, I'm going to keep talking here, but I do feel that certainly in the top part of, again, we'll use swimming, you know, like they're coming out of that sport at the end of their career much more sort of well-rounded. It hasn't just been about swimming up and down and following that black line. So I think, you know, the sport and taking on, you know, mental preparation and looking after the head, I think it's setting them up now to be able to actually go and, because they know what they've been doing and why they've been doing it, so they can actually take that and put it into the rest of their life. Whereas historically that hasn't been the case. It's just you get in and you do it because that's what you've got to do to win or be successful. But then they don't know what to do with it afterwards because they haven't actually learnt or understand that process.
Yeah. Look, wise words. Wise
Thanks.
words. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I'll see you poolside.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.